to do. One of the things I thought that you said it was interesting there was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so just tell me if I'm wrong in this. Ignore a notice. Can you just ignore a notice? What happens then?
So this actually, it's funny you say that, because I was about to follow up with something on this line, which is a cease and desist letter is just that. It's a letter. A lawyer drafted it and sent it, and the purpose is to get you to stop, to get you to do something. There isn't any legal force behind the letter as a letter, right? It's basically a way, and I don't want people to misinterpret this, because it's totally valid to basically scare someone into doing what you want them to do, assuming that what you're telling them is true, right? So for instance, if someone releases an app with the same name as my app that I've been selling for 3 years, or a very similar name, and it's a similar app, and I've registered a trademark, and I've put a lot of money into developing it, I absolutely should be defending it. And side note, with trademark, you actually do have to enforce and try and go after people in order to keep the trademark rights strong. Not the case with copyright. So I'm justified in doing that. When I send the letter, what I'm hoping to do is to get them to stop or change their name for the least effort possible. Sending a letter is very simple compared to filing a lawsuit. So that's why it's always the first step. And usually it says, we noticed you were using this name. We have the rights. Here's some proof. Maybe we attach the registration. Please stop by X date, or we'll have to do more. And they hope that the person getting that letter says, oh, I don't want to deal with that, and stops. And it's funny, because when I phrase it that way, I think most people are thinking, oh, I won't get taken in by that. Well, sometimes you should be stopping, right? Because if, like we said before, if they have a good case, then you might have just messed up and not noticed that there was a big app out there already that used that name. But if you think it's spurious, or you want to fight it out because you think there's a distinction and you really attach to the name, you can either ignore the letter, or what's better, respond to the letter. And I've had clients hire me to do this, to write back and kind of say, we received your letter, and then explain the various reasons why, from your perspective, you're not doing anything wrong and that you don't intend to change it because XYZ reasons in trademark. And I like to use the phrase, as I'm sure you're aware, which is a little douchey, but it's the way of saying essentially, your letter's BS, you don't understand trademark law, we're fine, we don't have no intention of changing it. That's calling their bluff, essentially. Because the next thing they have to do is, well, if you do that, then they kind of have to take action, or not. But they're the ones who have to spend the money to institute the case, right? Now, if they want to go to court, there are other things they can do. We talked about them in the first question, right? They can go, and I think that's what this question was premised on, the idea of them contacting Google or Apple. That's a hassle. So in court, the onus is on them to try and stop you and to pay the money to start the court case. But in the practical world of the App Store or Android Marketplace, Google or Apple is just going to take it down. Or they're going to contact you and say, we received a complaint about this, please work it out in the next week or two, or we're going to take it down. And that can be hugely disruptive. Even if you're taking, especially if it's at the wrong time, right? You just launched, you're having this huge success, and you get the takedown notice. If it's disrupted for a couple of days, you've lost your momentum. So it's worth responding to these things if you think you have something to lose, and it's worth figuring out how strong your position is. So that's what I'd say. And so the bottom line is, it really depends on whether or not they have a good case.
Okay, and that sounds fair enough. And it also sounds like it's very important as to whether or not there's money on the line, right? If you can't afford to fight the thing, then maybe make your decision based on that.
Right. Yeah. This is a common theme with a lot of my advice, which is that a lot of times people write articles and talk about the law from the perspective really of like giant companies, where and I like this too. I'm a nerd. I love thinking about the cases and, how can we win this case? And it's like, those technicalities are cool, but a lot of times to get to that argument and to have that cool, interesting discussion, you have to be in court. You have to have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to have this giant litigation and have that cool conversation. This comes up a lot with fair use that people love to ask questions about. They love to think they know everything about fair use. Turns out you don't get to make your fair use argument unless you're already in court, and that's expensive. So
wow.
my line on that.
Okay.
I can answer more questions about it if people really want to know, but the bottom line is 90% of the time, it's probably not fair use.
Right.
Even if it is, if they have more money than you,